Welcome to the Experience Darden podcast. I'm your host, Brett Twitty, and you are listening to a new episode. On this episode of the podcast, I'm excited to share my recent conversation with Bradley Levergood and Maya Singh. Bradley and Maya are first-year students in our full-time MBA class of 2023, and they recently joined me on the podcast to talk a little bit more about their venture, Clarifi. If you're interested in entrepreneurship, if you're interested in learning more about resources available to students who have this passion for launching their own venture here at the Darden School of Business, as well as at the University of Virginia, this conversation is essential listening. So without further ado, here's my interview with Bradley Levergood and Maya Singh. Maya, Bradley, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Well, it's great to have you here. When we got on, it's part of the warm-up conversation. Our listeners don't know this, but there's always like 5 to 10 minutes of just discussion about what the conversation is going to be. And I had mentioned that I feel like every roughly couple of months or so, I get an email and your name is in it. And the email relates to some portion of the E-Cup competition and all the success that y'all have been having. So first of all, congratulations. It sounds like it's been a pretty incredible ride thus far.
Thank you so much. That's definitely right. Yeah, we previously about a month ago won the discovery phase of the E-Cup, which has to do with customer discovery. So like, who is your product for? And this past week we applied for the launch phase of the E-Cup, which is to say, we have our product, or we're close to having our product. We know who our customer is. We're fairly confident about it, and now we're ready to go out and expand. So it has been a ton of fun to participate. But yeah, appreciate it.
Maya, one of the things that I've talked with some of, I guess, your classmates as well as other E-Cup participants about here on the podcast is just how helpful the process of getting ready for the E-Cup, the different phases, the making the pitch, the presentation, getting that feedback, whether you're successful or not, or you win the money or not. That process is super helpful to people, particularly in kind of an early stage of a venture, as you're still trying to kind of figure out what you're about and where the opportunity may be. Has that been helpful to y'all?
Yeah, absolutely. The Batten Institute does a really great job of providing some structure to us to each of the different phases of the competition. So like Bradley mentioned, the first part was around customer discovery, and we really had to think about how we interact with our customers and really think about the product from a customer back perspective. So that was super helpful to be able to have some structure around thinking critically about the customer experience for the first phase. And now, we're in the launch phase. So they've provided some great structure around thinking about forcing us to think about the total addressable market and our business plan and our revenue model and all of these good things. So it's been super helpful to, have some structure through this process. And regardless of outcome, it's been super beneficial to work through creating the slides and thinking through all of these different pieces of creating a business. So it's been cool. All
right. Well, how are y'all doing generally, Bradley? You post spring break now, it's starting to warm up. I'm looking here at my computer. It's a sad commentary on the world when like your computer tells you it's really nice outside and you're like, oh, that's nice. But nevertheless, it's 77 degrees here in DC. I'm sure similar weather in Charlottesville. So how are things going?
Things are going really well. So at Darden, we have a core program for the first 3 quarters. So that's leading up to spring break. And that is really like trial by fire. There's, it's a lot of business fundamentals, which as a technical person, I really didn't possess. So it was a lot of work, but also a huge opportunity to learn more about those elements and be more helpful in the items that Maya had just alluded to. And now post spring break, the weather is getting very nice and we're starting to take more electives. So Maya and I are both taking an effectual entrepreneurship course, which is talking about how to build an endeavor or a venture, by leveraging the people and resources around you rather than, I think the stereotype that you kind of have to be a superhero that can do it all. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've learned more and more about effectual entrepreneurship through the podcast, mostly talking with
Mm-hmm.
people who've been in these kinds of classes, occasionally getting an interview with a faculty member that works in this area. And I do think there's this myth of the entrepreneur, this kind of unicorn, $1 billion idea. And when you actually take a step back and sort of unpack that, people do entrepreneurship all the time, like small
Yeah.
businesses. They're looking just to solve a problem, meet a market, whatever the case may be. And then I really do think that effectual entrepreneurship is really compelling because it's, to get out there, test it, with what you have, go do something, get some feedback, and continue to iterate. I think it's a really powerful thing for students, particularly if you're starting to explore what might be possible. It makes it feel less daunting. Let's put it that way.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We actually, when we got started, we tested our core concepts without developing like any of our own code. We just put together a package essentially of existing software because we just wanted to see like, is this going to work? So that's definitely something that I take to heart. And it's really cool to see that there's an academic field that aligns with that approach.
And Maya, how are you doing post spring break? It's April. It's a beautiful time in Charlottesville.
Yeah, it's been great. Taking the electives have been super fun, and all of the spring social activities here at Darden are picking up as well. So Darden Cup is in full swing. We had cricket last weekend, and we have kickball coming up, and basketball a few weeks before. So all sorts of fun stuff happening around grounds. So it's super, super fun to be here these days.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit more about your respective stories. Maya, can I start with you? Tell us a little bit more about who you are, where you're from, and maybe what you did before coming to Darden.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am originally from Rochester, New York. So born and raised there, spent 18 years of my life in the cold, and then decided I needed to get away. So I actually came to UVA for my undergrad. So I am a student to be double who, which I'm very excited about. And at UVA, I studied biomedical engineering, and then I pivoted to Capital One, where I was a business analyst for a few years, focusing on product analytics. So working on our digital products from an analytics perspective, and then actually became a product manager for one of our customer facing features in our web and mobile apps. So it was really a great experience before business school, but I knew, similarly to Bradley, like I didn't have any sort of fundamental business knowledge. So Darden, the core and the academics in particular, are very well known to prepare students to become great business leaders. And I've definitely learned a lot in core. I feel like from everything from accounting to economics to finance, I hadn't seen any of that material before. And now I really feel like I can speak intelligently to all of these concepts. So yeah, the core was definitely grueling, but well worth it. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, we've talked quite a bit with first year students about the core curriculum, and it's well known for being challenging and really pushing folks. One of the things that I've thought a lot about is students have described it to me and also reflected upon it as they're typically where you are now, not in it necessarily, a little bit past it, and kind of looking back. And the thing that students will oftentimes share is that they felt like, yes, I did a lot of work and I was really pushed, but there was like a purpose to it all. It wasn't just trying to keep you busy. Does that resonate with you, Maya?
Yeah, absolutely. I think particularly the case method brought that to life, because every day in the classroom, we were looking at real life applications. We had, in particular, I'm interested in technology, and we had a bunch of cases on the applications of the concepts that we were learning in class to tech companies. And it really helped me, to your point, have a purpose to everything that we were doing and really see the real life applications. So I appreciated that in particular about the case method.
And Bradley, same question for you. Tell us a little bit more about you and your background, what you did before coming to Darden.
Yeah. So, as an undergrad, I had a background in electrical engineering, computer science, and psychology. And so then post graduating from that, I moved to the DC area, and I'm originally from the Northern Virginia area, so not too far from home, and worked at Booz Allen Hamilton. So it's a government consulting firm, particularly in their IT space. So doing that, I supported one main client, but worked with a lot of their subdivisions on a lot of different technologies. And so my favorite part about working there had to do with the ability to touch on a lot of different technologies. I love learning new things all the time. But it didn't allow me the flexibility to, really move, I guess, as quickly as I wanted because it was a governmental space. And so I wanted to be able to get more into the commercial realm, if you will. And business school seemed like a great way to be able to do that and do that effectively. So that not only would it serve as kind of a signaling pivot point, but I'd also have those skills that we both touched on to actually go make an impact. At the same time, about a year before I decided to come to Darden, I started working with our co-founder on this venture. So it was a lot more of the technical aspects. So I'm the CTO of the company. So doing a lot more of the building stuff, the stuff that I was like super comfortable with. But then once I got to Darden, I was able to kind of see a little bit more of the forest for the trees and start having, broader conversations about strategically where are we going, how are we planning on implementing stuff from a customer perspective, rather than just being able to say, okay, this is a cool idea, let me make this work. So definitely been a lot of fun.
So Bradley, you come to Darden and you mentioned you having more of a technical background, and now all of a sudden you're taking a core curriculum, finance, accounting, marketing, operations, et cetera. But what was that adjustment process like? I should also note you're learning through the case method too, so that might be somewhat new to you too.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually, so to Maya's point, I thought the case method was particularly good. And that's one of the primary reasons that I wanted to come to Darden in particular, because the case method is a conversation in class. You're not getting talked at for an hour and a half. You're having to come up with ideas, defend those ideas, be wrong about those ideas, or maybe be right, but broaden your perspective. But it all stems from, having to communicate and talk, which, as an engineer is not always your role. Sometimes, like a lot of times you're putting together the black box and you're just telling people the black box works. So, I had to switch from just coming in and being like, the numbers are right, period, to defending it and translating it into something meaningful. Cause you can have a, sweet equation, but if people can't understand it or understand why it's valuable, then it isn't particularly useful. So being able to broaden particularly that communication skill set and to connect that technical mathematical background to like real world implementations has been huge for me.
It's interesting what you just shared there around having to explain in the why. When we talk with faculty, particularly who teach in areas like quantitative analysis or even finance, what they'll share is like, okay, yeah, you might have a really slick spreadsheet where like you've got the numbers worked out, but you still have to come up with a story. You have to be able to sell it to people. You have to be able to explain it. And that is oftentimes overlooked, right? A lot of prospective students in particular will really gravitate towards more of the skills end of things. Like, I just want to be able to do this and that or the other thing, or know this vocab. But a lot of where you spend time in the case method is the rationale. Why this decision? And kind of everybody's looking at the same thing, but what led you to get to this particular point and derive the conclusion that you derived? And I think it's a very powerful exercise for students.
Yeah, both in terms of gaining that experience, but then also when you have to explain the why, you can notice, even if your math was right, you might have been overlooking a fundamental thing that either can't be captured by the math or that you need to adjust your math for. So broader viewpoint for sure.
Excellent. All right, Maya. So you somewhat similarly, right? You mentioned having more of a technical background. You'd worked in this kind of tech-related space before coming to Darden, and all of a sudden you're plunged into this core curriculum, case method. What was that adjustment like?
Yeah, I think in particular, I had been surrounded by many people who thought similarly to me before coming to Darden. And what I found particularly valuable was being in a classroom with such a diverse set of peers. So everyone was able to share their unique viewpoints. And it was some of the coolest moments in class were not learning accounting from the professor, but from the CPAs in our class and hearing about people's times in finance on the trading floor and hearing from our marketers in class in our marketing class. So I think that was probably the biggest change for me, was being in a room full of people with so many different perspectives and backgrounds. And that is why I came to Darden and why I wanted to be at a place that in which the students were the ones who were doing the teaching, essentially. So it was a really good thing for me to be pushed from people who thought a little differently than me. So it did take some adjusting at first, but super valuable.
Well, I want to explore and talk a little bit more about your venture. This was the precipitating idea of, inviting you on the podcast. We always try to highlight student ventures here on the podcast. One, because, do think that there's quite a bit of resources here for folks, both at Darden and at the university broadly. There's a great community of people. You have all your classmates, you have faculty, you have alumni tap into. So in a lot of ways, it's a great way to kind of get a sense of, the people who are here in the community and the way that it works for students. And so, how did the two of you connect, Bradley? How did you had mentioned that you had actually started the venture maybe about a year before showing up at Darden. So how did you and Maya connect?
So, to your point about being able to connect with people at Darden, that is where we connected. So, my co-founder and I have, how do I want to put this? We tend to agree on a lot of things, but we're not the most structured individuals. And so when we came to Darden, we really wanted to both expand our kind of like set of viewpoints and also get a little bit of help, making sure that we're staying on task rather than just like charging full ahead, which is my preferred mode of operation. And so we actually put out a general call to the Darden community asking for anybody that would be interested in it. And in being a product manager for us, and Maya connected with us, and she was one of the few people that we talked to that really questioned kind of our assumptions and things, which, to her earlier point about having differing viewpoints, we were just like, we need this. Like, we need to nail this down. So it's been great to be able to leverage the Darden community in terms of both that connection and then also the broader student support.
All right, Maya, I have a question for you, but before we get there, I want to ask just for our listeners. So we kind of started to set the scene, but tell us a little bit more about the venture. Bradley, can I come back to you for this question?
Absolutely.
And then I'll give Maya a chance to chime in if she has anything else to add. But what's the name of the venture? What is it all about?
Yeah. So the name of the venture is Clarifi Technologies, or Clarifi for short. And that's the same as the normal word, except there's an I at the end instead of a Y. And our venture is focused around building tools for students, particularly those with ADHD, to stay focused while they're doing their digital homework. It was born from our CEO's own experience with ADHD, plus, COVID turning everything digital. Making a lot of the traditional tools that students have to stay focused non-feasible because they're all analog. It happens to circle around, put your electronics away. So we have tried to digitize a lot of the tools and lessons that he learned, and backing it with research. And so the main components of that are both limiting distractions, but then also providing a gamification element to add a cooler incentive to try and make it a little bit more fun.
Well, Maya, I'm curious, you have some product management background. You've mentioned your role at Capital One. What attracted you to this opportunity in working with Bradley and the team?
Yeah, in particular, the mission of the company really, really appealed to me. I was looking to get involved in something that helped people. And it was super inspiring to hear the CEO's story and his experience with ADHD and his motivations to create this product to help students complete their online homework. So that was a huge draw for me. And Bradley and the CEO are just so fun to work with. And from our first meeting, I knew they would be a great motivated team to be a part of. So that was also super encouraging that they were excited about the venture, and I saw a huge, huge potential, and the number of students that we could build an amazing product for just really inspired me. And I'm super grateful to have been selected to join the team.
So Bradley, it sounds like the CEO of the company, there's a real personal connection here. Is your connection to this work similarly personal, or what attracted you to the idea when you got involved with the venture?
Yeah, so it's a couple different things. So first is I have a personal connection with the CEO. We went to undergrad together. And so, he just reached out to me wanting, some technical advice, and similar to Maya, it seemed like a huge, like a great mission and a huge possibility of potential. I just kind of repeated myself there. But it was really cool because it involved a lot of different technologies, which kind of sparked the nerd component in me as well. But then additionally, I don't have ADHD, but I do have cerebral palsy. And so being able to kind of do something to help students that might struggle with kind of their own abilities or differences, it's called difference learning that we focus on, resonated with me, if not specifically, at least on a more general level.
So you both have referenced this kind of potential of the idea, and just even as you were describing it, I mean, so we are all on these screens a lot more these days. We've got phones, a zillion things competing for our attention. It does feel like this market is pretty vast. Maya, I imagine that had to be on your mind. Of course, now we're in this pandemic where it seems like this more virtual medium is going to be with us for a while. And that had to be exciting to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I was really excited, especially when I got to use the product myself to work on my homework and cases. I was able to see how this could be so impactful, not only to students with ADHD, but to anyone really. So that, to your point, just really being able to see the help that the tool gave me really inspired me to think about, this could help a lot of people, and really want to make a product that is effective and helps people save time more than anything else. I mean, that's our most valuable resource, right? So would much rather be, at a baseball game or kids playing outside or something like that than working on their online homework. So it's been a huge time saver, and hopefully, we can share it with many more people, even those who don't have ADHD.
So Bradley, I want to focus in particular on the time that you and Maya have been working together, your time kind of here at Darden, maybe how the idea, how the venture has evolved since you started here. So any thoughts that you'd like to share?
Yeah. So like I said, Maya's been wonderful to have on the team. I think she's been a great voice in terms of being able to help us take the ideas that we've generated previously and help us build on those to think about how we want to build out our last feature sets. So there are some things like sending notifications to parents to let them know of their students' progress, and making sure we implement that well, that Maya's been huge in. And she's also been great in helping us coordinate additional developers and make sure that everybody's working in unison and on the same page. So really indispensable asset to the team.
So Maya, how similar is the work that you're doing now to what you've done previously, and how much is the approach that you're taking now been informed by the experience you've had at Darden?
Yeah, I think before, when I was in product management at a pretty large company, there was a lot of structure and practically unlimited resources. But to the point of effectual entrepreneurship, we really, in this very early stage startup, we've had to work with what we have, which has been a very different experience. We've had to be scrappy. We've had to pivot. We've had to, work on the fly. And it's been a really, really valuable experience, and in quite a bit of contrast to my previous experiences. But I do think that working on this early stage, a startup has also given me a chance to apply a lot of the things that we've learned in the core, because Bradley and I are kind of acting like general managers in a sense of this small startup. So yeah, we have to think about the business plan and, crunch some potential cash flows for the business and think about how we're going to market the product and what the actual revenue model is going to look like. So taking things from marketing, taking things from finance, and it's been cool to actually see the application of some of the things that we've learned in core, and sort of use that general management skill set and apply it to the startup. It's been cool.
And Bradley, our listeners can't see this, but as Maya was talking, I noticed that you were agreeing with her and head nodding and this kind of thing. So it sounds like what she's sharing resonates with you.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. It's kind of all hands on deck, maybe not all the time, but for as much time as we have, given the academic obligations. But it has been very cool to really kind of apply stuff in real time. So like we learned something in like our finance class, and then immediately make that connection of like, how does this apply to what we're doing with our venture? So it's really made the experience of starting a company exponentially more valuable, I think, because just being in that culture is an experience all its own, the fast-paced nature of it, but being able to expand your knowledge and immediately apply it makes it all the more worthwhile.
Has having this venture, this going concern throughout this first year, has that been helpful to you just generally, maybe as an outlet or a way for you to kind of, maybe it can be a little hard, I think, particularly during quarter one and quarter two for students as they're just getting up and running, to kind of be able to feel like, oh yeah, this is how this is helping me, and I'm immediately applying this. Maybe having the venture kind of gives important context to what you're learning in class.
Yeah, it definitely does. So like you said, it was a way to immediately show ourselves the value of what we were learning. At the same time, I did have to learn how to take a little bit more of a step back to be able to accommodate all of the all of the obligations, especially in the first 3 quarters, which was a really valuable lesson for me in and of itself, to do better kind of time management, objective management, and learn how to, expand our team and help everybody like be more, I guess, empowered, instead of trying to do the superhero act of like trying to develop everything.
Maya, I think what Bradley shared there is really interesting to think about, because oftentimes when you think about startups and ventures, you're thinking about like endless amounts of time and, late nights and all this kind of thing, which of course is not a luxury that full-time MBA students at the Darden School have. You don't have endless time. You've got so many things competing for your hours during the day. So what was it like to try to carve out this time? Any lessons that you learned along the way?
Yeah, I think for me in particular, it was really just putting it on the calendar. I mean, that's sort of, I live and die by my calendar. So setting aside time to work on cases, of course, having class scheduled, but then also setting aside time to work on Clarifi was absolutely critical. So I think to Bradley's point, the time management becomes extra important when you are a full-time student and also working on a startup, but it is very much possible. I think that goes to, like, we've been learning about in our effectual entrepreneurship class, founders and entrepreneurs can take on all different shapes and sizes. And that includes being a student and being a very busy one at that. So yeah, it's been cool to see that we can indeed juggle these things and make progress both in our academics and on the ventures. So it's been rewarding for sure.
So much of what you just shared, Maya, I interview a lot of our executive MBA students and alumni on our Exec MBA podcast and the sister podcast to Experience Darden. And it's so interesting to hear them talk about time management strategies while they're in the program. And so much of it is about being highly scheduled and putting things on the calendar, like to the point, like some of them even talk about like blocking out time for like family time. And I know that sounds really strange because like, well, shouldn't that just happen? But we're talking about like being very intentional with how you're using your time day to day and kind of putting in non-negotiables and things that you absolutely want to make sure are built in so that other people in your life know that this is your time. So if you are trying to schedule something else or a meeting, someone sees that just as you see it and process it and like, oh yes, this is my time to do that. It actually encourages people to be more productive because it basically have this window and that's your window and you got to get it done because you have other things coming up. And so I think that's a surprising thing, but you of course don't have endless time. So being more structured makes a lot of sense. So you've had this e-cup experience. You've been working through this. And so where are things right now, Maya, with Clarifi, and where kind of, and I'm going to ask you both this question, like where do you see things going? What are you really excited about?
Yeah, so the product itself is really coming along. We have been building out our feature set, like Bradley mentioned, trying to create a product that is helpful to students and parents alike so that everyone can be fully aware and celebrate the students' successes. So we're getting the product ready and are really excited to be working towards a sort of commercial launch and selling this product pretty soon, hopefully at the beginning of the next school year, maybe around August. So that's sort of what we're working towards. And at the same time, working with our existing students to make sure we're iterating on the product and building a pretty robust product through constant feedback from the students and parents that we have existing relationships with. So that's sort of the current state of the product.
So it sounds like a fair amount of user testing has gone into this, Bradley. And how do you find the students? Have your classmates been helpful to you? Are you working with also, I imagine, students across a lot of different ages and educational levels too? I'm curious.
Yeah. So our target range is generally speaking 5th through 12th grade. And to your point, we've tested this with roughly, correct me if I'm wrong, but roughly 90 plus students. And I believe we have around like 20 current active users that we're getting that feedback from that we're trying to iterate on as we're completing that MVP product. Definitely gotten a lot of feedback and advice from classmates as well, from both like product feature discussions to also helping us with those e-cup presentations. To Maya's point about where the product is, completely agree with everything that she said. Another element that I'm super excited about is that we will be participating in the Batten iLab incubator over the summer, which is a great way to both leverage the Batten Darden community, work with, I think there are like 15, I need to double check that, entrepreneurs from the UVA community. As well as just have like a dedicated carved out time over the summer to really push us to that commercial launch in the August timeframe.
That's awesome. I was wondering if the iLab would come up as part of this. I was curious about how you're spending your summer. So not surprised to hear that your venture is part of that story. You mentioned gamification Because when I was first thinking about your idea, it's like, oh, a focus thing, and then you said, like gamifying it, and I'm really curious. What does that look like, Bradley, from a user experience standpoint?
Yeah, so from a user experience standpoint, each student is given their own like customizable avatar or like character. So they can change that avatar to match whatever appearance they'd like. And then the gamification element is that we give them a tool to help them plan or like segment out their work, which they're then incentivized through both like experience points, putting that in quotes, for their character to level up, and getting progressively cooler like level names, and also gems. There's basically like a shop where as you complete homework, you get gems to then buy cooler and cooler equipment for that character. So accessorizing out the character itself as well, and you get to see your own progress in your like on your desktop or within the application as you're working. So it's not like back of mind or anything like that. It's very immediately. You get to see the progress that you're making as you're working.
That's so fascinating. Was this always part of the deal, or did this come to the team as you were starting to develop the idea a little bit further? So
that primary point of being able to see your progress as you were going was definitely one of the first components that we had. The exact like structure and flow of like how we could help the students plan or segment out their work has been a function of testing and figuring out what does and doesn't work. I will say that the overall UI, we actually asked a lot of our like first two waves of students. We showed them the UIs that we had been considering, and we actually had their input to help us choose, what we decided to go with. And then the last component is the level to which, there are rewards at the end with that kind of like equipment. And we have other things that we're working on rolling out, like activity streaks, that kind of thing has also kind of developed as we've been working.
Maya, I would imagine, given your interests in tech and all these kinds of things, I mean, this has to be a tremendous opportunity for you to work closely with customers and go through this iterative process of developing user experience and interface, and kind of the avatar thing is really, really cool to me. How do you make homework more fun for kids and like keep them focused on it? I think that's such a novel solution. I mean, I have to think that this is a pretty exciting thing to work on.
Yeah, it's been amazing to work through the product development cycle essentially from the ground up. So taking the user feedback, doing that discovery, and then working through the designs, getting feedback on the designs, and then working through the implementation has been really cool. And then constantly iterating on that and seeing the reactions from the students, especially when we share a new feature or a new idea, has been probably the most rewarding. It's been really, really cool to interact with the students and the parents and to hear what's been going really well and where things can improve. So yeah, all around a super, super valuable experience.
Well, I have a last question for you, Maya. I'd like to kind of start with you. When you came to Darden, did you imagine being involved with this kind of thing, or has this just been serendipitous for you? Do you happen to get this email? Gosh, that sounds interesting. I'm going to go to this meeting. I'm curious.
Yeah, I think when I came to Darden, I didn't necessarily know exactly what I was going to be spending my time on. I went to the clubs fair. I did all of the things you do in the beginning of the year. And then, Bradley, I think it was like a Teams message that you posted in the tech club group or something. It just, I came across it and I was like, this seems really cool. I can truly practice product management with such a cool team and product. And yeah, I pursued it. And to your point, Brett, it wasn't mostly serendipitous. It was sort of fell into my lap, and it's been one of the most valuable experiences I've had thus far at Darden for all of the reasons that we talked about throughout this podcast. So yeah, I'm super grateful for that Teams message, I guess.
So we're grateful that you read it.
Grateful that I read it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about. If you guys ever get on How I Built This, you'll have to say, well, it kind of, at least just for this portion of the story, started with the Teams message in a tech club group. So, Bradley, obviously your story with Clarifi goes back a little bit further. But did you always have that entrepreneurial itch? Did you always want to, start something for yourself?
So yes, I think so. To Maya's earlier point, entrepreneurs take all shapes and sizes. So I don't know that I imagined myself being this far along in a venture this cool. I've always had like an itch to build things, but they've always been more as like side projects where, if I could think of a way to monetize them, like that would be cool. But nothing quite this mission driven. And so this was a really cool experience for me to kind of expand my horizons, and really, start trying to really put myself out there rather than just kind of constantly thinking about ideas that might be cool to build.
All right. Well, we ask everybody on the show the same last question. Is there a piece of advice you would share with our listeners? Bradley, I'll come to you first.
So the piece of advice that I would share with our listeners from a Darden perspective is lean on your classmates. I think we've mentioned it in a variety of ways, but you'd be coming to a community that has all sorts of different viewpoints, talent sets, and is just genuinely impressive to be in. And so you don't need to do it all. There are people that can help you and want to help you, and vice versa.
All right, Maya, you get the last word here. A piece of advice for our listeners?
Yeah, I think to Bradley's point, taking advantage of the Darden community is probably going to be the most valuable ways people can spend their time. So you might be in a scenario where you have to choose between doing a case alone in your room or going to a Darden Cup event. And I would encourage people to consider going and putting themselves out there and meeting people, because at the end of the day, the relationships that we form at Darden are going to, I think, be the most valuable things we take away. So that would be my piece of advice. Don't tell my accounting professor that. I'm just kidding. They probably would agree. I think they would agree. So.
And I will say, Maya, you're not the first person to have shared that particular piece of advice that, if pushed, case versus, spending time with your classmates and developing those relationships, you can lean on your learning team. You can find a way to be ready for that class. But, the relationships that you develop, those are sticky. Those are for life. You're going to take that out with you. You may remember that accounting case. You may not, but those relationships are going to be with you for a very, very long time. So, such a pleasure talking with both of you. Thank you for coming on the show, and thank you all. And thank you also for sharing, part of your entrepreneurial journey with our listeners. It's so much fun talking with student founders here on the podcast. And good luck in the launch phase of the eCup.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us, and really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
And that was my interview with Bradley Levergood and Maya Singh, two first-year students in our full-time MBA class of 2023. As always, if you have any comments, suggestions, requests, anything you'd like for us to cover here on the podcast, we're all ears. You can be reached at Darden, that's DARDEN, @virginia.edu. Until next time, stay safe, be well, and thanks for listening.